many women or many survivors, including women and girls or even men and boys, are not able to report the violence for many reasons. One is the stigma attached to being, say, a survivor of sexual violence. Many times women feel like they were to blame, or women are also blamed for being raped. So that stigma itself is really a big, big challenge. The other challenge is that in Kenya particularly, the citizenry don't have a very good relationship and experience with police. In fact, police themselves have been perpetrators of sexual violence, including around times of elections violence or other times of crisis. So women really do not have that trust and confidence in the police that police will listen to them when they themselves are sometimes the people who harm them. But there are also practical cases of where women just don't have the resources. Say, for example, right now during the COVID crisis, where we are hearing about increased cases of violence against women, women already are struggling to feed their families. So even just having, that 100 shillings to get on a matatu or a bus to go report the case to the police can be very challenging.
Are there ways to go around this challenge?
Of course, there are ways. One thing really is also to create awareness about the importance of reporting sexual violence. For example, in cases of rape, it's really important that they report and seek help within 72 hours so that they can get the right post-rape care. But also to just get help and treatment for the injuries. I think also holding law enforcement officials accountable is really important because they are really like a weak link in terms of justice for survivors of sexual violence in Kenya. But I think generally dealing with communities to prevent cases of violence, of course, is the long term and the most, necessary solution to all this.
Women in war zones continue to suffer from sexual violence. What has to be done to stop the suffering of women and girls in conflict zones?
So it's a sad reality, the way sexual violence is used to intimidate, to terrorize, punish groups or communities. And in terms of what you're asking, when will it end? I don't have an answer to that, but if what we've seen so far is anything to go by, in terms of we are not seeing proper responses to prevent or to even respond to such violence from governments, then it's not going to end anytime soon. Because if you have an environment where, say, militias or military and other security officials, or even just ordinary citizens are committing rape in the context of violence, not only actually just violence of conflict, but even during times of peace, and nothing is being done to them in terms of being arrested and being prosecuted, then it creates an environment of, so what, I can do it and get away with it and nothing is going to happen. So what is going to stop the other person from thinking that, we're having this conflict, we can rape women? But I think every effort should be made to make sure that cases are documented, where it happened, who the perpetrator, witnesses, who are the women, because there are things such as prosecuting commanders or people in authority, even when you are not able to identify who is the individual that committed this rape. So the biggest problem is documenting. And that is where you see there's been some efforts at the international level, for example, some of it led by the UK government, to develop protocols for documenting sexual violence in the context of conflict. Because without that proper documentation, then it becomes very difficult to hold people accountable for what has been happening. And when there's no accountability, then there's nothing to deter people from committing those crimes in the future.